This is the famous Rick, known as the Muscle Man, who is a receptionist but decides to become an adventurer instead. We see his first appearance with us as he is beaten and falling from the top of the mountain, and he was almost on the verge of death due to the harsh training he was doing. At this moment, we see the team he is talking about, and they are standing talking about him on top of the mountain. They say that Rick has become very good compared to his beginning in the training, so he can pass the E rank test that he will undergo after a few months, and that makes him qualified to pass the important test. We go to the city where there is a large number of adventurers who apply to the Adventurers Union, and every 2 years, they apply to raise their rank. But the problem of the adventurers is that they only have their bodies to rely on in their work, and if they become weak or their health is tired, they will lose their jobs immediately. That's why most of those who apply to this union are young people and teenagers, and this is a big dream for them to be strong adventurers and always take the spotlight. In this union, we see a girl named Elisa, who is the supervisor of the entrance exam tickets. And when Rick arrives to take his ticket, Elisa is surprised because she was his colleague before he disappeared 2 years ago after submitting his resignation to the manager. And he was also very surprised when he saw her because he didn't expect her to move to the main headquarters. She asks him where he was hiding and why he wants to be one of the adventurers. Weren't you a receptionist before? While they are talking, a drunk man appears, and it is clear that he is infatuated with Elisa and is waiting for her to finish work. But he got bored and wanted her to go out with him, so he wanted to force her to do that. But Rick intervenes and grabs the man, telling him that what he is doing is not allowed. But after a few seconds, due to his grip, the man faints, and Rick thinks it's from too much drinking. As for Elisa, she gives Rick his exam ticket and his entrance number, and when he went out, he met a woman named Reniette who was waiting for him and apologized to her for the delay, and told her that there are many competitors inside who hope to achieve what they want. As for Elisa, we see that the drunken man seems to be taking his last breaths, and we know that this drunken man was a former adventurer in the Union from rank AAA, and his name is Dumold, but he is sentenced to prison for the charge of assaulting women, and he is also nicknamed the Demonic Knight. At that time, Elisa noticed that Rick's handprints were on the drunk man's shield. They were amazed because the shield was made of steel. She was shocked when she realized that the drunk man was about to die from the strength of Rick's hands. Then we go back to Rick, who is inside the examination room. After that, the contestants were asked to put their hands on the blue crystal to measure the amount of their power through the light that comes out of it, which can determine the level of magical energy within each of them. Every time someone puts their hand on this crystal, a bright light appears inside it, so they can determine who is gifted with magic and who is not. Most of the group that was with Rick succeeded in this, but when he put his hands on the crystal, he only found a very small light that quickly disappeared. The person evaluating the results was shocked and told him that his magic level is in the negative F rank. Rick was shocked by this but remained silent. However, seconds after Rick left, something very strange happened, which is that the crystal they were testing with was shattered, and this was of course the effect of Rick's hands. Then they take the contestants to the test again to measure the force of their blow through an impact-absorbing device called the Jelly Gold. The person in charge of the test asked them that each person must hit the golden jelly bag with all their might to achieve a distinctive number that would benefit them in the promotion. And among them was the son of the Duke, who was only 11 years old, but people were saying that he had magic equivalent to the C rank, and it was clear that he was overly confident and loved to have all the attention on him. This is in addition to seeing it as a good opportunity to show his true power and become known as the child prodigy. The child approached and began to use his magical power, and everyone standing there was amazed by him, except for Rick, who was very surprised that the fireball he had created with his magic was small, and when it reached the shock-absorbing bag, it disappeared immediately. But the observer said it was a miraculous power and that he was truly gifted. Then he remembered when he was in the mountain, and one of those who were teaching him made a fireball spell, and the magic ball was very large to the point that he was running away from it, and then he knew the difference between what he was seeing and what he had been training on, and he wondered how a child with such ordinary power is called the child prodigy. Then it was Rick's turn. The monitor noticed that his age was very old. With sarcasm, he told him, "You are just starting your life as an adventurer at the age of 30? Be careful. If you don't train your magic when you're young, you won't be able to make it grow when you're older. Not to mention that measuring your magical capacity is extremely ugly. Take my advice for your own good. Withdraw and surrender now." In that moment, Rick felt that the monitor was right, but he was remembering all the effort he had put into the training he had undergone in the mountain and how harsh it was. He remembered when his teacher told him one day to surrender because you still have 30,000 hits ahead of you. That's when Rick got up and continued and didn't surrender. That's why he decided not to reply and used all his strength to hit him. But the surprise was that the golden gel bag was completely destroyed, to the point that Rick thought that the device had a flaw and it was impossible for it to be destroyed so normally because it was light in his hand. At that time, all those present in the test room were shocked by the shock, and then the Duke's son decided to compensate for this loss in the defense tests, because his magic is basically defensive, not offensive. But even when they went to the defense tests, Rick was able to repel the compound nature magic of the 4th level, which shocked the Duke's son, who said that he personally could not withstand that same magic. At this time, they were praising Rick, because his strength was tremendous. But he didn't feel that he had achieved any accomplishment, and at that time, he didn't know that he was able to withstand 4th level magic, so he was surprised by all this praise. And at that time, there was a very strong one testing the strength of our hero in resisting magic, and when he saw Rick's strength in resisting, he was shocked and told him, "What level are you in, that you can control your strength like this?" And he felt that Rick was belittling him with these words. So he hit him with a shock hurricane spell. But after a few seconds, they were all surprised when he was able to destroy the hurricane before it even reached him. And no one believed what they were seeing, and they couldn't imagine that someone with this strength would be with them in these tests. And because of Rick's strong resistance, one of the kingdom's knights of the 1st degree, whose name was Sylvester, heard the sound and was a knight of the 1st degree. And he said to one of the officials there, "I heard about a person of a weak rank who was able to destroy the golden gel bag. Is this true?" So she told him, "This is Adventurer 4242, coming from an unknown place and very strong." And Rick was able to overcome the power of high-level magic in his test. All of these things are completely unnatural. And here we know that Rick's training with very powerful adventurers was the reason why the difficult tests seemed trivial to him. With sarcasm, he said this was the latest joke she had heard in the guild. Honestly, she told him that if he did not believe her, he could see all the information about it right in front of him. From this information, he learned that Rick had been working for 14 years as a receptionist at the Senjichinkut Tiger Road branch of the guild, and at the same time was taking a written exam to determine the level of the applicant's theoretical knowledge. Quickly, we learn about the ranks of the adventurers. The F rank is for beginners, for whom fighting monsters is extremely dangerous. The E rank is where the guild begins to recognize them as adventurers, but they still have difficulty fighting monsters. The D rank is a middle-level rank, and no adventurers stay in it for long, considering it a transitional rank. The C-rank adventurers are capable of killing weaker monsters, but stronger monsters pose a challenge for them. The B-rank adventurers are able to kill strong monsters on their own, and the A-rank, the highest, can take on groups of monsters alone. After all these exam rounds, we see Rick sitting with the beautiful girl, Renette, and he tells her that he has finally completed the preliminary exams. She asks him about his performance on the written exam, and he says he is sure to get an excellent grade. During their conversation, the Duke's son, who is very hostile towards Rick, enters and recognizes him as the boy who was with him in the exams, asking him about his name. The boy gets more agitated and tells him his name is Freed, and Rick tells him to calm down, saying he will help him find his way back to his family. But Freed angrily tells him that he was waiting for these exams to fully showcase his skills and become the most famous one. But Rick stole the spotlight from him and ruined his plans, and his dream was destroyed. And at that time, a woman named Angelica came, and they call her Oni. She started blaming Rick for the Duke's son crying, and told him that she is his older sister and the oldest daughter in the family. At that time, Fred took the opportunity and told his sister that the 40-year-old man who was bullying him, and as soon as Rick heard that, it was as if a thunderbolt had fallen on him, and told him that he is still young in his 30s. But Fred and his sister keep talking about Rick, that he is old and in his 40s. So he told them that I am still 32 years old. At that time, Oni was upset, so she offered Rick a duel between them, and she took off her gauntlet and threw it at him. And this, by the way, is a move, so that if he takes the gauntlet from the ground, it means that he agrees to the duel with her. So he went with good intentions, picked it up from the ground, and he didn't know that by this move, he would be agreeing to the duel. After that, they go to the battlefield, and she tells him that you should know that I am a second-class knight of the kingdom, and with all my mental abilities, I have decided to challenge you and crush your head for my brother. Then Oni tells him that since you are the loser anyway, we will make an agreement that the loser has to live as a servant of the winner until he dies. And Fred encourages Oni at that time and tells her that I want you to defeat him in a severe defeat. At that moment, Rick looks at Renee and tells her that this woman said she is a second-class knight of the kingdom. Is that true? And she told him, unfortunately, she is really like that, and her level makes her an adventurer of the B rank. With horror, He tells her that the B rank that makes the adventurer able to defeat high-level monsters alone, and he tells Renee, "Wait, I'm actually just an F rank adventurer, so I can't even participate in this duel at all." And she tells him, "Don't say you're worried." And he tells her that if I fought this battle, I would go as a victim. Renee tells him, "Are the muscles in those arms of yours or what? Just be more confident in yourself and remember how you were humiliated in your 2-year training. And don't forget that the Eureka Fist team, who boast of being the strongest of all, consider you one of them, so you can't be in this condition in front of anyone." At this moment, she restores his confidence, and he decides to get up and start the confrontation with all courage. At that time, Rick didn't know what to do in the face of a woman in her full strength, and to what extent he could resist, but he had no choice but to accept that fight. Oni told him that she wouldn't kill him, and would make some concessions. Not to worry, all because he was still at the F rank, so he would definitely die in her hands if he didn't take precautions. Then she started using her sword and her maximum speed, but without attacking him, she went to powerfully cut the iron door behind our hero in half, at an amazing speed to prove her abilities to him. And she told him that instead of greeting him with words, she had to show him her speed, although she had slowed it down. But Rick didn't understand why she was doing this. Then came the time when Oni increased her speed and attacked our hero. But at this point, Rick saw her as very slow and didn't understand why they called her the flash speed, as she was moving so slowly. So he easily dodged her attack, not understanding how he could do that, and that only the top-ranked knights could dodge her attacks and match her terrifying speed. This made her very angry, and she started attacking him again, but for the second time, Rick saw her as slow, to the point that he thought she had reached that high position through the relations between her family and the guild, because it is impossible for someone with such slow speed to be in a high position. So he no longer understood whether she was slow or he had become much stronger, as his running speed was much higher than that, and at this time, she was very angry and decided to use her maximum speed. But as she attacked him, she stumbled over a rock and was about to fall. But as she used her speed to avoid the fall, her sword was terrifyingly fast, but unintentionally. So our hero started trying with all his might to escape from her until he finally succeeded. And then Rick was amazed and thought that this was her power and that she was truly a very strong person. And so that Oni wouldn't appear that she had stumbled and hide her embarrassment, she asked him how he was able to dodge that legendary strike. "And you seem to be as strong as they say." And then she decided to resort to her last weapon to match this fight, which is a technique that can only be executed 3 times. And then she loses all her energy. So she started implementing it once and twice, but our hero easily dodged it. And she didn't understand what exactly this man was? Anyway, this attempt of hers made our hero shout and decide to fight now instead of just taking a defensive position every now and then to end this long fight. She was trying by her technique for the last time, but luckily she got tangled up. She was heading towards him on the ground, so he decided to hit the ground hard to be able to stop her as she was approaching him at a terrifying speed. With the force of his blow, the ground was horribly excavated, and here, Oni started to cry and said that if she had not gotten tangled up, that blow would have hit her in the face. She was already among the dead. So she asked him in terror who he was exactly. He told her that he was just an ordinary adventurer of rank F, and he doesn't know why you keep asking me this question. But of course, she didn't believe him, and when he got out of the hole, he told her that he knows his strength is weak compared to hers. But it doesn't matter. He will try anyway and consider it a training session for him. But as soon as she saw him approaching her, she was terrified and told him, "What are you going to do? I surrender." Then he was very surprised and didn't understand why. And to preserve her dignity, she told him that she would let him win this time and that she would be lenient with him because he was able to avoid her quick blows. And in the end, she left the arena and fled. So he told her, "Wait, miss. I think there was an agreement that the loser would be a servant of the other until he dies." Of course, as soon as she heard that, she fled in panic. And then Rennet told him that they have to leave to know the test result. And she told him that the rest of the Orichalcum Fist team are coming to check him. And as soon as he knows they are coming, he gets terrified and feels that their presence will definitely cause a disaster. So we conclude our episode with the strongest adventurer team of all. Let's start by continuing our events with Elissa, the supervisor responsible for the magic test tickets. She begins to talk about the announcement of the test results that the participants underwent. She tells them that each of their magical energies will transfer to their personal test ticket. If it lights up blue, it means they passed the test. Then she informs them that those who pass this test will participate tomorrow in the second test, which will be a simulated battle. At this moment, our hero Rick was very terrified of failing the test, but Renette always gives him a boost of courage, telling him not to worry and to be more confident in himself. She tells him to remember that if he fails the test, his harsh training will triple. At that moment, his test ticket started to light up and turned blue. Our hero was overwhelmed with joy that he had finally passed the test. He felt relieved at last, and then, as he was leaving the place, he smelled a very strong scent but couldn't identify its source. He then saw Raster Dermot, who entered gently and complimented Renette on her dusky beauty. He told her frankly that there was a small thing he wanted to ask her about. Of course, she knew that he was the firstborn of the Dermot family, who ruled the northern lands, and his name was Raster Dermot. He asked Renette for her name. She answered simply, and he told her that he had fallen in love with her and wanted to take her to the northern lands and make her his second wife. Rick was very upset at that moment by the man who came to flirt with his beloved. He stood in front of Raster and told him to take himself and leave. Raster replied, "Why are you interfering, old man?" Our hero told him, "Renette is my beloved, and I won't stay silent while I see you flirting with her in front of me." Before Raster could respond, he noticed Rick's promotion ticket indicating that he had passed the first test with the rank of F. As soon as he saw that rank, Raster laughed and mocked Rick, saying, "Is it possible that someone your age is just starting his life and at such a weak rank?" Rick replied, "By the way, you look 25 years old, so your power must be delayed as well." He responded with great sarcasm and said, "You don't even know how to assess the strength of your opponent. But it doesn't matter because your vision is definitely weak, old man. But let me tell you that I have been promoted to rank A since I was 14 years old. And not only that, but I will be the one who will test you in the imaginary battle tomorrow." And when that happens, we see Rick shocked in his place. Raster said to him arrogantly, "Move aside now and let me talk to this beautiful girl." And then he said to Renate, "I'm telling you to get away from that old man and come have dinner with me." But his shock came when she refused, and she told him, "I can't come with you because I'm with Rick. I'm sorry. And by the way, the perfume you're wearing has a very strong and annoying scent." In great anger, Raster shouted in Rick's face and said, "I won't forget this situation, and I will be the one who tests you tomorrow in the imaginary battle, so meet me if you can pass." After he left them and left, Rick felt embarrassed by what he had said to Renate, without asking her or getting her permission. But she surprised him by not being bothered. On the contrary, she was happy and thanked him for getting her out of that situation. As for Raster, he went home full of anger and kept drinking, saying, "That idiot doesn't know that there are people born to be the best, and I will teach him manners tomorrow and give him a lesson he won't forget." At this moment, the twin brothers entered, and among them was Fried, whom we saw in the previous episode. The twins were crying and complaining to Raster that a middle-aged man had bullied them, and Raster didn't lack anything related to Rick because he couldn't stand him and wanted to humiliate him for what happened today. Afterward, he asked Fried if he knew Rick's test number, so that if he wasn't in the group he would be examining, he could choose him. And Fried told him that he must remember his number, as it is as big as his age. So Raster laughed and threatened our hero with the worst insult tomorrow. The next day, it was time for the imaginary battle, and we see how tense Rick is, and as usual, Renate is trying to encourage and calm him, but he was afraid that his luck would be bad, and he would face Raster. The reason is that his rank is very high. In addition, and he is resentful of him. He will defeat him badly, and he will fail the exam. And also, he was shattered in front of Renate. At that moment, a man comes out to him and tells him, "Aren't you Rick?" With astonishment, he says, "Yes, I'm." He replied politely and told him, "I'm honored to meet you. I just want you to know that my name is Lynx, and I will be the one who will examine you in the next exam." And Rick, at that moment, is very happy that he finally won't have to face Raster in the imaginary battle as he had thought. Then, Lynx tells him that he is just surprised about one thing: the idea that you change your job from a receptionist to an adventurer at the age of 30s. That's very strange. He replied to him and said that he knows he started late, and before he could finish his speech, Lynx interrupted him and said with great enthusiasm, "Your determination is so beautiful, and it inspired me because I am a middle-aged person like you, and I wish I was like you. Honestly, I started my life as an adventurer at the age of 24, but the idea that you apply as an adventurer in your 30s is the first time I've heard of it. You must have a very strong motive behind this." And Rick confirms his words and tells him, "That's true, I really have a dream, but how did you know that?" He told him, "I'm sure I'll notice that, especially since you're like me. I have already reached the age of 40, but I am striving to reach the A rank in order to achieve my dream. Although I spent about 20 years to reach the B rank, I still dream." And Rick felt the enthusiasm of this man and was happy that there was someone like him who shared the same feeling. So he greeted him and told him, "I'm happy that you will be with me in this imaginary battle." And they agreed together to go out and have something to drink after this exam. During this time, Raster was standing hidden, observing them and hearing all this talk. Then we see Lynx walking alone. surprised by the touch of Rick's hand when he greeted him, and realized that he must have trained a lot to have his hand in that shape, and he decided to work harder in his training in order to be like Rick. At that moment, he hears the voice of Raster calling him and telling him that he wants to talk to him in private. Rick was standing with the adventurers waiting for the imaginary battle. He was standing happily, until one came to them and informed them that all those whose number is above 4200 will do the exam with Raster, because Lynx suddenly fell ill and will not be present. Our protagonist at the time had forgotten his name because it was too long. So, Rinnet told him that this is the man who was putting very strong perfume yesterday, and our protagonist was shocked and asked her if she was serious. She told him unfortunately yes, and not only that, since his family name is Dermot, that means that Oni and his brother, Fred, whom we met yesterday, are related to him. At this moment, our protagonist became tense because he heard someone saying that Raster is a true genius and is known as the man of 1,000 abilities, and no one can stand against him. That's why all the adventurers were anxious that he is the one with them, especially since his most famous title is the Crusher of Rank F, meaning anyone of that rank is literally crushed. And Rick also heard that Raster enjoys every year to annoy the examiners who draw his attention. At this moment, Rick became even more terrified because he guessed that Raster must have set his sights on him and will finish him off. At the same time, Raster was standing on the battlefield executing the ice ability he possesses, and we see how distinctive and formidable his ability is until one of the guards comes to him and tells him that he needs him for something important. As for our protagonist, Rick, he kept going back and forth, terrified and unable to sit still due to the intense fear, and Rinnet then asks him, "What's wrong? What's with this, Raster?" He told her, "They say this man is called the man of 1,000 abilities. Do you know what that means against someone like me? I'm in rank F and can only use a couple of first-level spells from the compound magic. That means he'll crush me without a word, and I want to go home. I don't want to die now. But no, if I went back home, the 4 trainers would triple my training and that could get me killed." He was lamenting his fate, and we see the kind Renate quietly comes and sits in front of him and asks him that he doesn't have that little self-confidence, and he told her, "Where can I get the confidence when everyone told me that I started at a late age, and that I surely won't be able to achieve anything?" She replied to him that it means that people's words are what shake your self-confidence. So people's words are also what will give you the motivation and make you believe in yourself if it's positive, right? Well, I believe in you because you are truly strong and you will be able to defeat Raster. You can do that from the moment you decided to be an adventurer at a late age. And then we see a masked child coming to ask Rick to check his future. And the good-hearted Rick agrees and sits on the chair in front of the child. But suddenly, a magical circle forms under our hero, and he disappears. When Renate sees this, she understands that it's teleportation magic, and we discover that the masked child is actually freed. And he was very happy that he was able to deceive our hero. But Renate just touched him lightly and his eyebrows fell, and she asked him where did he send Rick, or else she'll pluck his eyes out. And Freed got terrified of her power, because Renate is one of the 4 strongest trainers who were training Rick. Anyway, Freed tells her that his magic can't teleport anyone more than 100 meters here. Believe me, at that moment, our hero finds himself outside the guild and doesn't understand what brought him here. But he is surprised that the 3 powerful trainers who used to train him have arrived at the place. The first trainer, who was always mercilessly beating our hero with the death training he gave him, stands with angry looks in front of Rick. At this moment, Rick shouted with all his might out of terror at the old guard and told him, "Take those with you and flee, because if you stay another second here, you will be counted among the dead. Flee quickly with your skins." But the old guard did not care about that talk and ordered his men to start the battle with Rick and those with him. And the largest guard of them comes with a thick and very strong sword, attacking the huge trainer with the sword. But the sword breaks easily on the trainer's body and does not affect him. So the trainer sarcastically tells him, "Your body is reasonable and well trained, but your weapon needs to be stronger." The guard gets very nervous and attacks him with his fist, but the trainer easily clamps all his fingers and his hand is destroyed. While the guard stands shocked at his hand, the trainer tells him, "Don't worry, I'll heal your hand for you," and uses healing magic to heal his hand, and tells him to train his hand so it can move well after that so it doesn't happen to him again. At that time, all the guards were standing in shock that one of the orc speaks like humans and also has the ability to use magic, but the blonde-haired trainer, whose name we know is Mizet, tells Rick that the meaning of all this chasing you is that you must have caused problems, and they have come to hold you accountable for them. But don't worry, I'll finish this whole matter for you. And he pulls out a very powerful weapon Rick sees for the first time. So, Mizit tells him, this is called the modified flamethrower cannon, and it has magic-infused bullets. They were going to attack him, but our hero started shouting at them and telling them they've gone crazy and are going to get us all in trouble. And the trainer told him not to worry, that it was magic bullets that wouldn't kill them. Would you like to try? But our hero was going to go crazy from the coaches who were making all this trouble. At that moment, the young coach named Alice, who has incredible power, comes in. The guards think she's just a little girl. One of the guards puts a knife to her neck and tells the others that if they're worried about the girl, no one should move. And he is surprised by a group of men standing in front of him, holding weapons and knives. And the guard who was with Raster a while ago tells Rick, I'm sorry, but you have to sleep for a while now. And Rick, with astonishment, said to him, are you sure you want me? You must be mistaking me for someone else. And he told him, unfortunately, we're not mistaken, and we do mean you. We are the personal guards of the Dermot family, and the guards tell him that they are here to prevent him from taking the exam and that he will fail without submitting it. With great anger, Rick tells them, aren't you ashamed of yourselves for coming to delay me from the exam? They tell him, you understand wrong, we are not here to delay you, we are here to kill you. We know that these guards are very powerful. The strength of each of them equals the adventurers of rank B, and among them, there is one whose strength equals rank A, like this old guard, and we see him drawing out two huge swords to finish Rick. At this moment, Rick feels that his end has come and he will surely die here. Rick, who was about to have a heart attack standing there, tells them they need to stop immediately or they'll die. You have no idea what this move you're making is going to do to you. The orc coach then calmly tells the guard that it's in his best interest to let her go right now. As for Alice, she asks what the meaning of that move was, as she doesn't understand. Rick says he just wanted to play with her a bit, knowing her power could destroy everyone there. She gets very excited and looks at the guard innocently, asking if he wants to play with her, but the guard tells her to shut up, bringing the knife closer, which starts to upset her. With just one word, she unleashes a powerful natural magic spell that crushes the man. The other guards are stunned at how just a 10-year-old girl was able to cast such advanced nature magic with just a single word. The old guard explains that Alice is the most brilliant and powerful vampire sorceress in the world, and Messet is over 50 years old, but looks like a young man cause he is half-dwarf, and his techniques are 1,000 years ahead of his time, making him the world's greatest weapons master. The orc coach has incredible physical strength, sharp intelligence, and can use all kinds of advanced magic techniques. He's known as the Wise Monster, or Broston the Orc. The three of them are S-rank adventurers, the strongest in the world, and members of the most powerful faction on the entire continent, called the Orica Lacum, and the guard decided to throw his weapon to the ground and said that he would retire and live in peace after what he had seen. This ended the obstacle that was in Rick's way to prevent him from participating in the exam. With great enthusiasm, he decided to prepare to start his exam. As for Renate, she was still clinging to Fred, and Fred tells her, how long will you keep holding me like this? She told him until Rick returns, and he told her frankly that he will not return, because it is impossible for him to know how to return from the place where I moved him, because it is full of our guards, and they will surely finish him off. But suddenly, Rick enters, and this shocks Fred, and he does not comprehend how he was able to survive something like this. Rick then apologizes to Renate for this delay. Before he could tell her what happened, Linux entered to him, beaten and unable to stand on his own, and he tells Rick that all this is because of Raster, to prevent him from being the examiner for Rick. Rick is shocked and does not comprehend that Raster did all this to be the examiner for him, and that he is planning such great evil against him. Then, Lynx tells him that Raster, while beating me, asked me about the dream you were talking about with Rick. So I told him that it was about poor children wanting to be adventurers. So my dream is to build a school and teach them in it. That's why he continued to beat me and told me that no one is ruining the country except for big people like you with impossible dreams. And he mocked me and beat me brutally that I couldn't withstand. And it seems that those of us at my age can't dream. So I beg you to withdraw from the exam, because what happened to me is not something, and he will try to harm you. But Rick, with all courage, tells him on the contrary, we will cling to our dream even more, because even if it is late, the dream has no age. And he leaves him and goes to the battlefield. At that moment, Raster used his fiery magic to kill his guards, enjoying and telling them that all of you are useless. We will continue our events with Raster and see that he is constantly destroying any opponent who comes before him, leaving them as lifeless corpses. At this time, there was a person named Adolf who had a superpower, known for being able to determine the strength of any person he looks at through his eyes. He was standing watching the opponents who were facing Raster and measuring the power of their strength with a kind of triangle. It was obvious obvious that their power triangle was weak. When he saw the power triangle of Raster, he noticed that it was large to the point that it caused him pain in his eyes just by looking at it, because he's supposed not to look at strong people, as the greater their power, the more pain he feels in his eyes. After that, he noticed the presence of Rick waiting his turn to fight, and he began to mock him, not knowing what this older man was doing among the youth. But despite that, he decided to measure his strength, and the shock was that Rick's power triangle was horrifyingly and shockingly large, to the extent that Adolf's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets from the pain he felt as soon as he saw our hero's power triangle. Then we see the Orica Fist team gathering to watch the fight, and Elisa joins them, and she was very anxious and worried about Rick, but Rennet assures her that Rick will finish this fight in 2 minutes without any incidents. So, Elisa is surprised and tells her that the one who will be tested him is Raster, and at that moment the leader coach tells her, "Yes, so who is this, Raster?" And she told him that he is a Class A person, and anyone who stands before him is easily defeated. And with the leader's confidence, he told her that if that's the case, then Rick will easily finish him off. At that time, she did not understand why he was so confident, while Oni and Fred were cheering for Raster and telling him that we want you to finish off this old man because he wasted our time. With sarcasm, Raster stands in front of our hero and tells him, "Believe me, I'm shocked that you managed to get past my guards, but in general they weren't that strong. Just a bunch of stupid farmers. But no problem, I'll do my duty with you." Our hero replied to him with the same sarcasm and said, "Yes, I'm aware of that, but I will only ask you one thing. Why did you become an adventurer?" He laughed and said, "Surely because I have the talent for it. Don't be fooled by the fact that I'm a rich person from a prestigious family. I've been gifted since a long time ago, and that will elevate my status even more than being of noble birth. It will also boost my prestige. But in any case, I'll be retiring soon because I'm bored. All of you are weaklings." At that point, Rick said to him, "Well then, I can't afford to lose to an idiot like you with such stupid goals." With sarcasm, Raster told him, "They say you should speak to your elders with respect, but sorry, I have to respond to you in a disrespectful manner through fighting." He then used first-level nature magic to cast a powerful ice attack behind Rick, declaring the start of the battle. But he noticed that Rick was still standing there, not moving. So he mocked him, saying, "What, are you too scared or what?" However, our hero was standing there trying to control his emotions, as Rennet had advised him that the first thing he should do is control his feelings and stay calm, so he can focus on his opponent, and then think about starting the fight. As for Raster, he keeps hearing chants from his sisters encouraging him to kill Rick, so he starts using third-level nature magic, which is igniting the flames. This causes widespread destruction and raging fires in front of our hero, but he stands firm and manages to control his emotions and contain that fire. And Elisa was terrified when she saw that fire, thinking that Rick would be defeated. But the leader tells her that's a trivial matter. Rick will easily be able to handle it. So she is really surprised and says, "How can that be trivial? That could kill him." And he told her, "Do you know what the 4 basic abilities are that determine an adventurer's power?" She said, "Of course I know. Physical strength, body control, magical power, and magic control." He said, "Good. A person must develop their magical power from a young age, or else they'll have no hope of progressing." She told him, "That's making me even more worried, because what you're saying is correct and should happen for an adventurer who is 20 years old at most, and Rick is 32 years old, which means his time has passed and he may be defeated here in the battlefield." But he told her that he was training Rick with very tough training that equaled and even surpassed that magic power. At the same time, Raster was executing the 4th-level nature magic on our hero and blasting him with the power of devastating hurricanes. But still, our hero is withstanding it, so the leader continues his speech and says that I trained Rick's physical strength from scratch, and Mazit taught him magic control, and this little trainer girl helped him play with magic, not to mention Renette, who helped him control his body. The leader continues to say, "We all trained Rick with the toughest training, and his strength is equal to the S rank, the highest rank in combat and magic. But he doesn't know this, and we've been hiding from him that he has this power like us." At this moment, Raster was surprised by all the resistance our hero was doing so far, so he decided to increase his power even more and use the shock burn skill. He mocks Rick, saying that the weak like you must taste the torment at our hands and die, because you are just a bunch of scum. He threw huge rocks at Rick, and the place fell silent. Oni and Fred were very happy that he had finally finished off Rick, and Elisa was shocked by what she saw. While Raster was standing proudly talking about his victory, he was shocked by Rick, who stood on his feet and shattered the huge rock into 2 halves and came out of it. Raster started getting very annoyed, and his siblings were shocked by Rick's power that always surprises them. That's why Raster doubled his power and activated the grip of strength. He tries to punch Rick, but our hero's grip was stronger and was able to push Raster away. At that moment, our hero realized that Renette was right when she said that Raster has high and powerful skills, but because of his arrogance, he hasn't developed them to the point of weakness, which is why he decided that it is impossible for him to lose against someone with these specifications. Raster's anger grew at that moment, and he cast a very powerful fiery spell on our hero. However, with the same ease, Rick was able to withstand the fiery energy, much to everyone's shock. He said, "I'm telling you, it's wrong of you to use your stupid magic on me every time, and it fails. Wake up, because your appearance doesn't look good in front of everyone." He replied to him and said, "I'm surprised that someone like you thinks he's strong, just because a few coincidences happened to him by luck like that." He activates the iron body stance and attacks Rick, but our hero, with his savage strength, was able to push him away. Oni was standing in shock and saying, "I knew from the beginning that this middle-aged man had something strange about him." As for Raster, he says to Rick with annoyance, "Let me confess that your magic is considered to be of rank A, but don't deny that your luck has stood by you more than once. I'm tired of this long battle, so I have to end it." Rick surprises him and tells him, "But I haven't used any magic so far, and all I've done is just control my body. And despite that, the level of my accuracy exceeds the power of your magic itself." He told him, "Okay, I just want to know how someone like you, with little magic and at this old age, managed to become this powerful in just 2 years?" He replied to him, "The one in front of you was imprisoned in the dragon's lair until I defeated it, and I wished for death every moment, and no one saved me. I ran through a series of daily explosives. I was soaked in a monster-binding liquid and choked on it many times, and much worse than that," Elisa says in shock. "But how did Rick survive all that?" The leader replied to her, "Who told you he actually died that many times? But each time I managed to save him with my healing magic." The 4 trainers begin to tell her how each of them used to torment Rick in the trainings. Then, Raster says to our hero, "Even if you've been exposed to all these harsh trainings, what makes you do all this? What's the motive behind it? And what will you gain from all this suffering?" He told him, "I'm like Linux, whom you hurt, and he and I have dreams we want to achieve, and my dream is to defeat the strongest monster in the world, Kaiser Albite." At this moment, Raster and his brothers burst into laughter. They realize that Rick is just a fool, because this is a mythical monster that only exists in stories, not in reality. However, we know that the goal of the Orica Fist team is the same as Rick's, which means this monster is real. That's why Rick told Raster that he is not interested in proving anything to him, because it's none of his business with his dream, and let's finish this fight. He replies to him and tells him that he is right, we must now resolve this fight. Suddenly, he uses 7th level nature magic, which is the powerful forest rope magic. It binds our hero to the ground, leaving him shocked and unable to move. Raster tells him not to be too surprised. The best is yet to come. "I will make you regret ever opening your mouth and speaking arrogantly in front of me. I will show you the true meaning of talent." And he uses the highest level of his magic, the 8th level of nature magic. He transforms into a huge monster, and the place becomes a dark and ominous place. With arrogance, Raster, sitting inside the huge monster, tells Rick to submit before him so he can easily spare him. But our hero here starts using his basic magic, which is of a very low rank. Raster mocks him and asks what he thinks, that his opponent is a fly, and what can he do with this useless basic magic? He told him that he will destroy the monster he is so proud of with a single punch. Here, Raster bursts into laughter and tells him, "Really? You are very funny, you." With a sharp look, Rick asks him how many times he has used this 8th level magic in his training. He tells him that he doesn't remember, but what he remembers is that he mastered it after just a few training sessions because he is a genius. Our hero tells him that, as for the basic magic that you don't like, I've used it 100 million times in training. Literally, Alyssa is shocked and asks the coaches how 100 million in 2 years is possible. The leader replies that this is possible through the use of space-time magic. This statement is shocking to Alyssa. Raster screams at Rick, saying he is tired of his arrogance and lies about things that never happened, and that he will crush him right now, you scum. He uses his huge monster to deliver a powerful blow to end the fight, but our hero uses his strong fist and activates the magic of the Foundation to simultaneously face the monster and destroy the crushing beast in front of him, throwing it to the ground in a very humiliating way. Courageously, he stands and says no one will be able to destroy his dream. At that moment, everyone in the place stands in shock, unable to comprehend that someone was able to defeat Raster, especially at the hands of a man they called an old man, a very low magical rank, who was always the subject of ridicule. After that, we see the coaching team with Alyssa congratulating our hero on his victory in this battle. At this moment, Raster leaves the place with his brothers, walking with difficulty from the injuries. When Rick sees him, he stops him and says he must want to know how an old man of a weak rank was able to defeat him. Irritated, Raster replies, "You've come just to mock me and make silly comments, haven't you?" Then Rick tells him that he was able to identify the techniques he used and started training on them intensively. He advises him to refine at least one technique, even if he feels like vomiting from his soul due to his arrogance. Raster, who was displeased with this defeat, tells him to be careful in the next promotion exam, as he will test him again, thinking this will not pass easily. He threatens to defeat him for sure, so the scum should prepare for the real loss. Our protagonist was standing waiting to hear his name among the successful. In that moment, Renier tells him, "Why are you so calm this time, and not nervous like you were in the preliminary exam? And standing so coolly waiting for your result?" He told her, "Because as I was standing, I started thinking about some important things. I wonder what was occupying his mind." That's what we'll find out next time, and we'll see what other adventures he'll face. And with that, our events for today have concluded. Don't forget to tell me your opinion in the comments, so that if you like it, we can continue the story. Alright, I'll see you next time. Peace.